I think I've always had a tremendous amount of freedom because I think freedom is a...
I feel very impressed with your way of being.
Some of it is really just being totally open and just trusting that my creativity is going to come. One of the things I do is that I ask for it to come, and by asking for it to come, I'm more likely to have it there, but also just the trusting that as long as I'm doing something that's fun and interesting every day, that whatever comes out at the end, like for instance when I was doing the show for the Treehouse, it was every day I just got up and knew that whatever I was doing was going to be, if it was fun and it was interesting, that it would all get done in the end, and it always did. It's made a huge difference in my life to be just happier with my life. And I mean, if you only thought of it as joy-based psychotherapy, it still works beautifully. It's really about finding, it's not just about a positive attitude about life, which a lot of people teach, but it's also about using your own inner guidance of your emotions to tell whether or not you are pointed in the direction of what you want, because your emotion, if you're getting positive feelings about what you're doing, or whether you're having negative feelings, and that when you have negative feelings, trying to find a way to soften it. And that's made just a huge difference, both in terms of business, in terms of my art, in terms of my life in general. It's really helped me sort of make everything integrated so that it isn't just about segmenting. I always had a very left brain job plus the art, and now everything is about using the creative process in everything in my life. Time isn't limited for me, and so it becomes very easy. It's whether I'm driving to work, I'm at work, whether I'm painting, whether I'm out here outside in nature, which I love. It just happens to be what I'm doing at the moment. So it really doesn't matter what it is I'm doing. I'm just enjoying whatever it is I'm doing, and I find that when I do that, time is sort of irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference. I'm just having a good time no matter what I'm doing. When I was taking a class in abstraction, and when I was reading Joseph Campbell's Power of Myth, I realized that I was on a spiritual quest, and somehow I was unable to access that without, in the normal ways that most people do about metaphysical things or whatever. And so I found that somehow doing the art was a way I could access it. But I've never been a spiritual quester, and I'm not somebody who's studied spirituality, basically. But I think the creativity was the way that I accessed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something I go about talking to people about, but a lot of times people will come up after they've known me for a while and say, how do you do this? How do you know this? And so, then I might talk to them about it. But it's also, I used to teach creativity workshops for artists because I find so many artists are unable to really relax and release and just surrender to the creative process. They're worried about product, they're worried about getting it right, they're very critical. And I guess I've been really fortunate because I've never had the inner critic. For me, it's all about play. The exhibit really is about getting back to, we should all be living our lives like we're 5 years old, and that's really what it's about. And what I think is amazing is so many people have really gotten it when they've gone into the room, because it is a very joyful place. One of the things I think most people mistake, that creativity is just about making art and making a product particularly, but they don't realize that mathematicians and businessmen and anybody is incredibly creative. It's really how you approach the process. It is that surrendering to something, to your intuition, to something that's bigger, something that you don't know how to do. And that's what with the creativity. And a lot of times it just involves putting two thoughts together that have never been, or you've never thought of putting together, and the eureka that comes from that, and how exciting it is to be in that place of the constant, the new idea. And that's what creativity is all about. And I found that actually logistic problems and the which to a lot of people, in the marketing problems and all the other things, were just as much fun as the painting. I mean, they're just all enjoyable aspects of things, of creative problem solving, so it was wonderful. Well, I find just the fact that I was excited about doing the project makes it almost impossible for anything not to be fun to do that's related to it. But I found that one of the things that was very helpful for me is to allow whatever that day felt good to be the thing I did that day. Because there are days I woke up and writing was what I wanted to do, or the construction was what I wanted to do, or the painting was what I wanted to do. And as long as I was feeling that this was the thing that needed to be done today. And what was interesting is that a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of people would have pushed off to the end, I did very early, and not because I felt I needed to, but just because that seemed to be the right time to do it. And it always was. I mean, if that felt good and that felt the easiest thing to do today, then that was the thing I did, and that's how it all worked out. I say I have 3 careers. I'm the host of 2 TV shows, producer of 1, and I have a full-time day job, and also I'm an artist. Again, I don't think there's a problem of time. I mean, it all sort of fits into it. Everything has its own time. In fact, there's a quote in the show about time is sort of a thread that just it takes as long as it's going to take, and I find that the time element doesn't really seem to matter. It just all seems to flow together as long as you're doing whatever you enjoy. But I enjoy my job as well, so there's no part of my life that I haven't found a way to enjoy. Even though at one time I did not like my job, I did learn to love it, and a lot of it was attitude about everything. I mean, it always is. It started when 3 years ago I started being the host for Creative Women Today on public access, and that is a program that is sponsored by the National League of American Pen Women, the Fairfield County branch, and that is women who are writers, composers, artists, people who are professionals in the creative fields. And as a result of that, one of the producers, I'm a host of that show but not a producer, and one of the producers of that show got together with someone else, Bob Lasbrigado, Stacy Enyart and Bob Lasbrigado got together and asked whether or not I would be interested in being co-producer on a new program, Ageless, where we interview people who are over 50 and in love with life. And that's really fun because, for one thing, I get to interview men, which I haven't been able to do on my other show. And I just love the conversations with people who are really in love with their lives. I mean, that's just a wonderful thing. Actually, I never learned to meditate, although I think a lot of the things I do are very similar to meditation, and they're just things I've done naturally. It's not something I've never learned to do that sort of thing. I do like to come out. I eat my breakfast outside, or I like to be communing with nature in a way, just sort of observing, just watching the clouds, listening to the water.
I feel very impressed with your way of being. This is true because I feel that you have really been successful in chucking out all the shoulds. I should be this way, I should meditate, I should have a schedule, You don't seem to follow that. You seem to really be accepting of who you are as a person, as an artist, and a being, a human being, a spiritual being, and really being in tune. So it really is impressive the more I talk with you.
I think actually some of it comes with age, and everybody's a different age. With me, it hasn't been that long, but it really has made a difference. I mean, I guess part of it is I made a decision a couple years ago that nothing was more important than this, and that somehow all the good things in my life were going to continue to flow to me if I could figure out how to just relax and not push against things, not feel the shoulds, not feel any of those things. I think intuitively I always knew I shouldn't have shoulds and shouldn'ts in my life, and I think I actively worked without realizing it, to sort of eliminate, just in terms of, I've always had a job where it didn't matter. I didn't have to punch a clock. I didn't have to be at a certain time, and I just think because that's the way I was, that's the way I function best, that's always the jobs that I got. So I think I've always had a tremendous amount of freedom, because I think freedom is extremely important to me, and sort of living life on my own terms. But yes, I do feel that, particularly as I've gotten older, that I'm much more accepting of myself the way I am, and enjoyable about it, and I mean, we all should be.